In fact, as you have given me in my introduction that I have been into the market for last 45 years, and I always say that look for opportunity in the adversity. And I won't narrate the too many instances. I won't go into the past. I just take the two major events. One of the 1997 Asian financial crisis, and second is 2008 of the US crisis, home loan or whatever you may call it. And they were seen to be the worst. Though the COVID-19 experience is seen to be an unprecedented, I don't think that any of our generations must have faced it. Those who are of the age of even 75, 80 years, people must not have felt that the lockdown can happen. You have to remain confined to your homes for maybe 45 days in the city like Singapore, New York, Washington, Bombay, Delhi, and all sort of things. So I always say that if you wish to invest into the capital market, probably look for opportunity in the adversity, and this is the right time for making the investments. In fact, we always crave, on the high valuations. Whenever you go into the past, we always say, I want to buy the stock A, but the prices are seen to be very high, or they are not seen to be very convincing. I won't go for the stock specific here. Those can be covered in our question and answer and in the interactive session. But I think that this is the right time to build the portfolio. I only say that the asset allocation is very important. I will not go into the other asset classes because my expertise lies only into the equity investment. And believe it or not, for my last 45 years, my major investments and whatever I've earned in my career, whether name or fame or maybe money, everything has come from the stock market. Since I entered into the stock market, first time I applied in the IPO in 1973 in November in Tata Finlay, which is now called the Tata Consumer. In fact, it has changed lot many avatars. Tata Finlay to Tata Tea, then thereafter Tata Consumer, then thereafter Tata Global, and all sort of things. So my point is that yes, you need to look for the opportunities and go for the equity investments, and more especially when there are no other asset classes for giving you any kind of return. If you recall, in the olden days, we used to make investment into the gold, maybe as a compulsion for our social needs, maybe for meeting the requirements of our better half, or for our family marriages, our social functions, or predominantly, if you see in India, people have gone to a great extent by making investment into the real estate, whether it was need-based or pure investments, and they've all got having rewarded very well. But if I just quickly go into the present circumstances, you have 4 or 5 avenues available. Real estate as of now is presently ruled out. You have a very difficult situation prevailing there. You are not very clear about the availability of the flats or premises which you have booked. Or even if you are holding the ready possession, then a lot of expenses are getting attracted, maybe in the form of maintenance. So real estate is ruled out. Come on the debt instruments. Again, the way the interest rates are falling, I'm not going by the global scenario. Again, if I confine myself even to in India also, the debt instruments are seen to be the most risky and most unsafe investments. We have seen the collapse of DHFL, we have seen the collapse of ILFS, and where at one time they were all AAA rated instruments, and now none of them are seen to be buyer. They are all junk instruments. So debt, again, with a yield of 6 to 7% or 7 to 8%, and that too pre-tax, you don't have any other avenues available there. Our commodity market is not very deep rooted. And in fact, even globally, if you see the recent episode of the crude having gone into the negative, minus $33 yesterday of NYMEX, that shows that the speculative trades can only lend you in the value destruction. So again, commodity is not the very conducive atmosphere for making investments in India. And lastly is into the gold and silver. Again, those things are not seen there. You just cannot buy the raw gold or maybe virgin gold or virgin silver and keep that in your lockers, or maybe even e-paper investments, because there is limitations and all sort of things. So ultimately, you have the equity instruments available as the best form of investments. And come on the taxability part also, because this is, since I'm addressing to the Chamber of Tax Consultant, where all the tax luminaries and experts are seen dealing with their clients. So this is probably the most efficient way of tax instruments. But yes, you need to be very what you call linear in making your investments. So I'll just give you 2 or 3 points which I always tell upon that, look for the companies which were in existence for last 30, 40 years or maybe 20 years, and try to assess yourself that whether that company can exist for the next 10 years or not. And if you feel that yes, the company can exist for next 10 years, that too as a growing this one, there is no point, because stock market is always look for the futuristic avenues. They always look for the future growth. They are not concerned with the past data, that how much company has rewarded the shareholder, how they grew and all sort of things. In fact, there are umpteen number of examples where the old stalwarts have seen the exodus, or maybe they have died down miserably. Even in the indexes, all that, if you see Bank Nifty or Sensex, in Sensex we have 30 stocks, in Nifty we have 50 stocks. You keep seeing the inclusion and exclusions of the stocks from that category. Maybe if you take a call on Nifty 50 stocks, probably in last 10 years 50% of the stocks must have seen the exclusion and inclusion, the fresh have come in there. So my point is that yes, it is very important to look for the equity as an investment avenue. If you have any surplus money, you look to make investments, more especially now going ahead, the way the things are panning out, the global liquidity is seen rising, and equity is probably the only way of parking your money, which is surplus in your hand. So yes, the present crisis or whatever situation which is prevailing, as I said, that I will only be focusing on the India. I'm not here talking on the global investments part and all that. Only its reflections will be considered here. So equity investment must be considered by all the people as an asset class now for parking their safe investments. Now, only precaution, as I've said, that in the asset class, since I focus or I picked up only equity investment, my request to all that, in fact, I have in my last 45 years of expertise or maybe consultancy having provided to various clients, I've seen that they just buy any Tom, Dick and Harry stocks. In fact, many of the investors, I would say 90% of the investors get attracted towards the junk stocks just by their own web of imagination, that these junk stocks can rise from 10 to 50 in a couple of years, but they doesn't rise in that way, and eventually those penny stocks becomes worthless over a period of time. So yes, while making investments in your equity portfolio, you must have at least, which I say that in no circumstances, whether it is bullish condition or bearish condition, you must not have less than 50% in the quality frontline stocks, which can remain in your portfolio for the next 1 decade or maybe at least for next 5 to 10 years. Number one. Number two, I always advise that never get married to the shares. Always keep booking profits. And more especially if I take from the tax point of view, the present tax regime says that the long-term capital gain tax is attracted at 10% and short-term capital gain tax is attracted at 15%. So even if you are a long-term investor, as I have said that your 50% of the portfolio must have the stocks which have a long-term view, which can remain with you in your long-term portfolio. Even I advise that in those stocks also look for keep on booking profits, because eventually you may buy them again at a lower level of 3 to 5%. Take for instance, if I talk of the HDFC Limited, this is just an example, or maybe Reliance Industries. And if you see take any time horizon of last 12 months, 15 months, 18 months, or last 3 months, you will always find that the share is moving in a particular range where you can, if you are not attached to your shares, you can very well go and sell the shares at a particular price. If it comes down, buy them again or look for the other ideas. Because keep your track on the 50 to 60 stocks, but your portfolio must not have more than 15 to 18 stocks. So coming back on the portfolio, 50% should be in your large cap. Maybe I would be happy if people are prepared to have an allocation of maybe 70% in your large cap stocks. Leave your 10 to 20% for mid cap, which have and again, let me tell you, this large cap, mid cap, and small cap or micro cap are not defined by any parameters. You have to set your own limits or your own parameters, because SEBI doesn't give you any kind of what you call rules and regulations that which are called the large cap or which are called the small cap. So for the purposes of easy calculation, I won't say that go for top 100 stocks by market capitalization. You may have to hunt. That may not be an easy job. So I say that companies which are having a market cap of in the present circumstances maybe of 25,000 crore or 30,000 crore can be treated as a large cap stocks. Come on the mid cap stocks again. If the company is having a market cap of anywhere between 10,000 crore to 25,000 crore, treat them as mid cap stocks. Companies with a market cap of 5,000 crore to 10,000 crore, or maybe 2,000 crore to 8,000 crore, treat them as a small cap, and below 2,000 crore, take them as a micro cap. So yes, the risk of higher return, higher profits always exists in case of small cap and micro cap, but you are carrying the equal risk of having a chunky and junky portfolio, plus the losses of making profits, plus the prospects of making losses also exist higher in the case of mid and small cap. So my point coming back, if 50% to 70% should be in your large cap. If I take an average stake for simplicity, 60% in large cap, 20% should be in the mid cap stocks, then maybe that makes 80 to 80%. 10% should be in the small and micro cap, and 10% should always be as cash to play on the opportunity and to play the situations available. So taking all this into consideration, the question is, well, this should be the asset allocation, keep on booking profits, buy the same stocks on a fall of 3 to 5%, keep a list of 20 stocks ready, and maybe keep churning within those stocks, and keep buying and selling them by booking a frequent profits also. And lastly, in your portfolio, you should not have more than 16 to 20 stocks of all categories put together. With a rider that we generally advise. In fact, the recent weakness which we have seen in the bank and financials have taught always a lesson that our Nifty, or maybe the portfolio of even mutual fund, PMSAs, or maybe alternate investment funds, or even of the larger HNIs were tilted more in favor of the bank and financials. At one time, Nifty had a weightage of about 40-41% in the bank and financial stocks, but many of the mutual funds have gone overboard, and they had their exposure of maybe 45 to 50% in bank and financials. But as a precautionary move, which I have always been advising, that never put more than 25% stake in any one sector, whether it is cement, bank, financial, automobile, IT, or for that matter, anything. Not more than 25% in one sector should be there. Not more than 12% or maybe 12.5% in one stock, however safe it may be. Now, if you go by the recent trend, which we have noticed because we analyze a lot of investors' portfolio, we have found that people have invested maybe to the professional PMS advisors have invested to the extent of 50% in one stock. That is, in fact, like playing with fire. So 25% confined should be, of the total portfolio size, 25% should remain confined in one sector, not more than 12 to 12.5% in one stock, and all stocks put together should not exceed 16. Maybe with about 6 to 8 stocks in the frontliner, about 4 in mid cap, and maybe about 4 in small cap. So these are the precautions, these are the advice. And if you keep booking profits, I don't think that you will regret that you have made any mistake. Just to give you a perspective and just to give my personal one, let me tell you, in spite of in the market for last 45 years, I must not have be having couple of stocks, more than couple of stocks, which I'm holding for last 10 years or more than 10 years. That means I kept booking profits at an interval of maybe 3 to 5 years, and I feel happy. I never regret that, oh, I exited early, because there are many stocks where I must have exited early, but there are many stocks where I must have made a huge fortune by making profits at a higher level. So these are the few backgrounds, these are the few points which I wish to say. And the present situation is seen to be an excellent opportunity for making the portfolio and building a quality portfolio if you have a time horizon of 12 to 36 months. Yes, Mehul bhai.
Yeah. Yes, sir. And now members would like to know that what type of investment should they make in this current scenario? In the sense, if there is any particular way to invest or methodology to invest in this market, like just go for say 20% of your total investment partly, and wait for the market to come down or go up, and then strategically, and what type of strategies should they follow in this market?
Now, let me take the situation in a different manner. Let's not take this COVID situation. I'll come on that little later. But suppose if the situation would have been normal, because this COVID situation may not remain or last for more than 3 months. We pray God that things get eradicated across the world, maybe in the next couple of months, and then again we lead the normal life. But suppose if the situation would have been normal, I always say that what are the stocks where you can see the consistency or the growth for the next 10 years. Obviously, you see that in the bank and financials, you see that in the consumption space, and you see that in the IT space. These are the three predominant. Because I'm not touching on the engineering, I'm not touching on the automobile, I'm not touching on the cement, I'm not touching on the steel, because cement the commodity has its own advantage and own disadvantage. But three sectors which comes to my mind is, one is the consumption, second is the IT, and third is the bank and financials, because bank and financials always have an advantage of leveraging over the GDP, because generally as a ballpark, we say that the net GDP of 2.5 times X can be seen as a growth coming in the form of credit growth by the bank and financials. But now this current situation, bank and financials have really seen having burnt the fingers of the investors because they have gone overboard, or a lot of index heavyweight allocation was made on the bank and financials. But if you go by the normal situation, the consumption, again in consumption, you know that all, you know, I'm taking the discretionary, staple and non-discretionary, everything. But if you go by the consumption, probably, you know, the names which comes to our mind is HUL, Nestle, Dabur, Godrej, Colgate, Godrej Consumer, Colgate Palmolive, or Bata, all these kind of stocks. And you must have, because if you have noticed these companies, if you plot the financials, then you will always find that they've shown a consistent growth more, because I always rely more on the bottom line growth rather than the top line growth. I'm not saying that top line growth is not material, but top line growth and bottom line growth both are seen to be important. And if you see these companies or this sector, they've always rewarded maybe with a growth of anywhere between 6 to 20%, which is seen to be very good. And if you take the compounding effect of that always gives you a good profit. That's the one sector. Second is the IT. I'm again referring the larger IT companies. One should not get too much bogged down by the valuation that, okay, these stocks are seen to be expensive, because if you buy quality, you have to pay a little higher price for that. And if by and large the IT companies, if I quickly go by the name, I'm first referring the 60-70% allocation. So the names which comes to your mind is mainly the TCS, Infosys, and maybe HCL Tech amongst the larger cap, or maybe Tata Elxsi kind of stocks in the mid cap space. So again, the advantage with these companies that they are exposed to the whole world. The geographical dispersion or the geographical dispersal is giving them the good advantage. Plus, they are always seen to be the debt free, because this is the best advantage. If you have ever seen the debt-free people have always got a very good valuation, because the MNC stocks, why they get the higher multiple on the stock exchanges. This is what I've been seeing for last over 4 decades, because all these MNCs are seen to be debt-free. Even in our personal life, if you wish to have some kind of relations, maybe for your social engagements, you always prefer a person who doesn't have the debt. So similar analogy prevails in the stock market investing also. Sometimes we feel very happy the growing companies that, you know, by those who avail the higher debts, their debt equity ratio has gone maybe 2 times, 2x, 2.5x, 3x. But eventually, if you see, they've all seen having landed up in a big soup, big problem. In fact, for the sake of simplicity, because there are all the data and norms available, but I tell my friends and my people also, one of the days I was talking to one of my Podrite friend, and I told him that if you are having your PBTs is less than the interest which you are paying, then you are not earning for yourself and you are doing a big blunder. He asked me, or his son was with him, he asked me, elaborate further, uncle. So I said that if you are paying 100 rupees as an interest, maybe on a monthly basis, quarterly basis, yearly basis to your banks, whether on term loan or working capital, or on your car finance or on your office finance, or whatever it is, the interest payment by your company, if it is 100 rupees, you must have a PBT of 100 rupees plus. If your PBT is less than 100, that means you are working more for the banks and you can never prosper. And believe me, this is just a loose benchmark, or this is just a loose tool which any businessman can look on a day-to-day basis, that if he's having an interest outgo of more than what has remained in his hand before tax, then I don't think that he's doing a wise work. Because sometimes we feel very happy when our credit limit gets enhanced, whether it is on a working capital or on a term loan. But that should not be seen as a growth criteria or as a tool for growing. So my point is that never go for the debt-ridden company, and that is what you find in the IT and the consumption space. And third, I've said bank and financials. Bank and financials predominantly they are in the job of lending money and borrowing, maybe in the form of deposits. So you have no other option, and you just cannot, because deposits are not termed as a borrowing by the banks and NBFCs. But NBFCs, if they borrow money from the banks, that is definitely seen to be as a borrowing in the books of the company, which we call it leveraging, maybe by 3x, 4x, 5x, 6x, 7x, which we have seen. So yes, you have to be careful, but these are the sectors which are always predominantly seen available for making investments on a perennial basis, on a perpetual basis. Now, coming specifically on the COVID scenario, if you really ask me, probably I'll say that 2 or 3. Those 2 sectors definitely remains for the time being. I will confine my selection of bank and financials maybe to the quality banks, maybe like top two private sector bank and one largest PSU bank. That is enough to give the hint to the investors. But apart from that, I will say that presently one should look for the investments into the chemical stocks, because if you see the chemical stocks, there are many companies, maybe like Atul Limited, Aarti Industries, or the smaller ones, who have seemed to be making a good exports and giving competition to China. Because if you see in the last couple of years, China have stopped production of the hazardous chemical, or where the pollution is seen to be very high. To give an example, in many chemical industries, you see the pollution quantum is 30 times, 20 times of the final product. So they've stopped making the chemical which are either in the batch process or which are in the more high polluting this one. So there are many companies available in India listed on the stock exchanges which can be bought. So these are the seasonal kind of investments which we have to pick and choose, either by making your own study or maybe by consulting your experts and all that. Like I gave you an example of cement. The way the situation has grown in this last maybe 12 months, because no new capacity got added. So yes, those things are seen to be seasonal, and you cannot remain invested in those stocks more than 6 to 12 months, because you have to be very nimble footed. You must be able to enter at the right time and book the profits when it gives you a return of maybe 15-20%. But on a sustainable basis, I would say that. And fourth sector which comes to my mind is the automobile sector. Again, in automobile, you see that there are 6 or 7 established players, of which 2 or 3 are highly leveraged and 2 or 3 are highly cash rich company with having no debt in their book. So that should be looked into. So as of now, if you really ask me to build the portfolio, I would say that the first preference will be on consumption, second will be on IT, and third will be on the select bank and financials with pedigree management, and fourth would be automobile. And then thereafter, the residual 20% or 25% could be the residual other sectors in which we should look for individual ideas. But for all these sectors and investments, the prime selection goes the promoter's track record. You must have the comfort on the promoter, and company should not be seen over leverage or should not be seen having high debt. Yes, Mehul bhai.
Yes, thank you very much, sir. I would request Ankit to read out the questions that has come in, sir.
Sir, we have an interesting question. For a retail long-term investor, whether he should maintain stop losses, and what are your views on investing philosophies such as buy right, sit tight, or coffee can investing?
See, now coming on the stop loss, in fact, I see this hearing. I don't think that stop loss is a tool for the investors, or the stop loss, in fact, is a tool for the traders. Now, to give you a practical example, they loosely ask that, can I put the stop loss in my investments? Take the case that of an investor, he has just 10 stocks in his portfolio. I'm just giving the least example. Can he every day put the stop loss? Because you can't put a stop loss on a sustainable basis for a month, and that cannot remain in the system. Can that investor in the morning at 9:15 tell to his brokers to enter the stop losses for all 10 stocks? I don't think that any broker will entertain. Maybe that broker will entertain for a day or two, and then he will say, get lost, you are just wasting my time. So I don't think that stop loss should be the tool for the investors. Now come on, what is the meaning of stop loss? It is reviewing your portfolio at a certain periodical interval. If you are an investor, if you won't allow the investors to mature, your investments to mature expected tenure, then you can't make money. Take for instance, you have bought certain share maybe today, and or to give an example, suppose you bought some share yesterday at an X price. Your stop loss may be 4%. Today the share fell by 4.5% for some reason, for some external factor and all that. Your stop loss will get triggered. You will be thrown out from that stock as an investor. What will happen? Again, maybe after a couple of days, the things will bounce back. I in fact request those who have this fancy of stop losses putting, let them try once or twice, and they will see the pain that how they have landed themselves up in the losses only. So I don't think that stop loss should be a tool for the investors. Yes, this can be a tool for the traders, but not for the investors. And trading is, again, as I said, I always tell that F&O, the future and option, is predominantly, or in fact, it has been structured largely for hedging. But in India, we use it for leveraging. And if you use it for leveraging, which I've given in example for the leverage companies, the same fate will happen to the investors also. If you are by paying 15% or by paying 15 rupees, you have taken an exposure to 100 rupees. So if it falls by 7% also, then practically your half margin will get eroded. And that is how people lose money into the stock market. In the F&O and not by making investments. When I entered into the stock market in 1974-75, at that time the stock market was always treated as a bad word, and in fact My father was an advocate, and some of the friends of my father told my father that take care of son. I've seen him going into the Bombay Stock Exchange. But my father had that confidence that no, he's pure investor. And believe me, in last 45 years, in spite of being a stock market advisor and in spite of being a NSE member for about 12, 13 years, which I voluntarily surrendered my broking business, I have never indulged into the F&O trade for leveraging purpose. So I don't think that stop loss is a tool for the investors. That can be a tool for the traders, and it's not practical for investors to put that stop loss. Yeah.
Right, sir. So there are a lot of questions with regards to how to time, because probably we see results of Q1 and Q2 not coming in lines of what we might have expected probably before the COVID-19 situation. So how one should approach the investment? If one has a fund of say ₹1 crore, whether one should go in today at once or should have 20% and then rest, or 50%, or how one should start allocating funds towards equity?
See, Ankit, again, coming on the stock market investments, one has to always take the futuristic call. The past data are no meaning. Now, take the example that Q4 seasons have already started, Q4 results of FY20. We won't find anything wrong with the Q4 numbers. We have already seen the results of TCS. We have seen the results of Infosys. We have seen the results of HDFC Bank. I'm just referring the three larger ones. You have not seen any kind of complaint with Q4 numbers, but people are scared that, oh, the future is seen to be worried, or maybe Q1 may not be good, Q2 may not be good, FY21 may not be good. They may have the right apprehensions. I'm not saying that they are not right, but eventually one should look for the stock market in the futuristic point of view, and nobody can take a call. When I see sometimes, on this media and all that, they say that estimate was this, but the actual has come like this. So I say that the estimates are wrong, not the actual ones. If you say that, take for instance the political pundits, they predict that Falana party will come into the power, they should beg 200 seats. And if that particular party gets 100 seats, then it is the wrong estimation of these experts, not of the ground reality. So my point is that yes, the things are seen to be always looked into the futuristic assumptions of the expectation of the results or the working, which is not practical, which is not possible. But coming on your second questions, if you see the present uncertainty environment, if the situation would not have been uncertain or this thing, I would advise that you can deploy 50% of your cash in one go. But now in the current situation, in fact, I always tell this about a week back, I had my webinar on the of the Institute of Chartered Accountant also about a couple of weeks back, where I've said that start deploying. And fortunately, that webinar was on Saturday, Sunday, and from Monday only market started moving up. So you can't time the market. Timing the market can never be done by any experts, not even by me or by any expert XYZ. So my point is that yes, start deploying in uncertain time in as staggered manner as possible, and never regret even if you bought them slightly higher. Sometimes we feel very happy of having caught the share at the bottom. What is the bottom? You may not have bought the entire quantity. Sometimes you buy maybe 1%, 2%. That is just giving you a mental satisfaction. That will not add any significant valuation or accretion in the valuation of your portfolio. So in the uncertain time, always cash should be deployed in a very cautious and in a very select manner. In the current situation, I will always advise that you have been already invested. Suppose take for instance of your 100 rupees allocation to the portfolio stock market, you are already invested 60 rupees. Good that you have 40. So of that 40, never deploy more than 15% in one go. Allow try to read or assess the situation that this situation may last for 45 days. So stretch your deployment of that fund available with you, maybe from 45 to 60 days and not in one go. So it should be in a staggered manner in uncertain situation, but in a normal condition, you can start investing at least 50% of your cash available. And as I said, that portfolio churning is key to success in the stock market. Otherwise, profit will always remain in paper. Yeah, Ankit.
Sir, a lot of news with regards to crudes have started coming in, and due to which a lot of participants are asking your view on the oil and gas sector, especially Reliance.
See, coming on the crude, in fact, this should again be taken as a lesson, because you have seen the May expiry contract, of the NYMEX falling to negative. Now, as I've said, that always the speculation can only destroy the valuation. Now, suppose take for instance, if the delivery mechanism would not have been there today or tomorrow, then you would not have this, you would not have seen the destruction happening in this manner. But my point is that yes, the situation always gets worse when the speculation elements comes in. And today, if you go by the oil and gas scenario, then yes, the oil consumption is seen to be very low across the world. Now take the case of US, $20 million per day consumption, 20 million barrel per day consumption. I don't think that they must be consuming more than 25-30%. Come on the production cut by the OPEC country, they've said from 1st May, they'll cut it by 1 million. Now 1 million is nothing. In fact, if you see, as I said, that 20 million barrel, if it is consumed by US alone, 5 million barrel by India alone, and if you see, are we seeing the vehicles flying on the road? No. So you will be having the lower diesel consumption, lower petrol consumption. But so overall, on the upstream, that is ONGC kind of things, the things are seen to be negative. I don't think that, and that more especially they are into the PSU space, then the woes are seen to be more existing for the oil exploration company. Coming on the oil market here, they may be having the good profits, but again the volume shrinkage will be seen. They may be having the flattish to higher GRM, but they will eventually be ending up into the inventory losses also. Now, since your question is specifically on Reliance Industries, we need to wait for their Q4 numbers, which in my view, they should be declaring in the next 1 week, though the board meeting has not been announced. But if you see these verticals of Reliance Industries, they have O2C, oil to chemical vertical, and the new generation vertical. Under new generation, they have Reliance Retail and Reliance Jio. And under the oil to chemical, they have refinery and petrochemical. Now in refinery and petrochemical, definitely there will be impact. There may not be fall in the refining margin for Q4. You will probably be seeing the stagnation in the GRM. They are again very prudent in the inventory management also, because they back to back, hedge for their entire raw material or entire crude inventory by the finished products also by the forward contract. So I don't think that the losses will be seen there. But what will be the situation on Q1? Reliance doesn't give any guidance on the oil to chemical business. Petrochemical will definitely be seeing the expansion in the margin, but again, the volume game will be seen lower. Come on the new generation and business, again, the retail is seen to be maybe near-term hampering is there because of the stores closure. But this Reliance Jio, the news which one should wait for the induction of a strategic investor in Reliance Jio, which Mukesh Ambani has already said in his earlier statements, that they are looking for induction of a strategic investor in Reliance Jio, and that will be seen only coming in from the US geography, because we have seen the telecom players across the globe having burned their fingers by investing in India. None of the US players have invested in India, and now they think that this is the time is right to make investments in the Indian telecom industry. And now there are only two significant players. That is, one is Bharti and second is Reliance Jio. I'm not including the BSNL. I'm not including the Idea. So this will be the right situation. You never know when the investment announcements can come that in Reliance Jio, the foreign company has acquired the stake, and that will and ultimately everything revolves around the debt reduction. Because if you go by the debt, the net debt with the Reliance Industries is about 1,60,000 crore. They have a gross debt of 2,90,000 crore. They have cash and cash equivalent of 1,30,000 crore. So 1,60,000 crore, how much they are able to monetize, how much percentage they will shade to garner what amount, it's difficult to say. But yes, oil to chemical business with Aramco, if may not proceed as of now, which looks little dicey, then at least Jio monetization can happen by induction of a strategic investor, which will be seen very positive. So yes, the things are having positive view. I'm not taking positive view on the oil and gas sector across the board, because that is not my investment on my investment radar. But because of the Reliance Industries, even taking the valuation call on their oil to chemical, that is refinery and petrochem, plus the new generation business, we are keeping positive view on Reliance Industries.
Thank you, sir. A lot of questions have come about pharma sector. How do you perceive pharma sector going forward? Whether it's good for investment?
See, again, I don't think that pharma sector should be across the board, because generally we see that we get enthused that, okay, this particular drug is required by the global markets, which is made by Lupin or maybe Cadila. Let's not go by the announcements on the vaccine being developed for the coronavirus, because that may take about 6 to 12 months by the world. I'm not an expert to take a call on that, but if you go by the announcements having made by the global pharma majors, it is always, one can always presume that it will not be possible to see that vaccine coming in for the next 6 months. Even Bill Gates have said that he has been able to succeed. He wants the immunity from any kind of legal this thing to be seen happening. So pharma is a very big subject, and we always say that unless until you really take a call and know the business model of the pharma companies, you cannot take an investment bet. So for the last about 1 year, we have always been saying that yes, you need to be invested in the pharma stocks because you cannot afford to have no pharma stocks in your portfolio, but be very selective. And taking that into consideration, we have been selectively, in fact, advising those who have been hearing me on the TV channels. We have been selectively advising on 3 or 4 stocks. One is DB Labs, second is Oro Pharma, third is Biocon, and fourth is FDC Limited. I'm not saying that because there are umpteen number of stocks available, 30, 40 stocks available, but you cannot have, as I said, you cannot have the crowded portfolio of pharma sectors alone in your portfolio, which should not exceed 25%. But I will be confining my investment allocation only not more than 10% in the select few pharma stocks. And I don't think that any one expert can really understand the pharma stocks, because what kind of API they are sourcing from China, no one is clear. What is the situation? What is their strength of the APIs which they are exporting to the globe? Nobody is clear. But yes, we at least know that DB's Lab are the very pioneer in exporting APIs. Biocon, we all know that they are into the biosimilars. Oro Pharma, we know that they have the good pipeline of the US FDA approval. In fact, yes, today only we have seen the US FDA for the Unit 4 scene coming in, which made the stocks to move to 18-20%. So you need to have some kind of patience and conviction, but be selective in making investments in pharma. And I always say that avoid chasing the momentum, avoid riding the momentum, which in fact we have seen in the past, people just buying maybe, the stocks which have gone up by 10, 12, 13, 15%.
So the recent move of the government of restricting FDI from neighboring countries, especially China. China was investing a lot of funds in India through various channels of theirs. How do you see that impacting the investment scenario in India?
See, I think one should not, Ankit, again, one should not be too narrow approach. You should be taking a narrow view of this. In fact, the whole world is worried on the China of this hostile takeover, or whatever you may call it. When Germany has blocked it, or maybe whole Europe is thinking of blocking any kind of hostile takeover. And I think rightly so, even US is taking a move in that direction. And even rightly so, I think that India has been proactively taken that step of blocking the investments. That they see, nobody stops the Chinese companies to make investments of, they raised their stake in HDFC Limited 1%, nobody stops them. But they cannot go for the hostile takeover, because gradually they may see the stake getting increased to 25%. That may not be practical and possible in HDFC Limited. India definitely needs capital. India definitely is a capital starved country, but that does not mean that we should, expose ourselves to the mighty of the China, which we have all been seeing that they are facing the flags from the whole world on this coronavirus. Multiple suits have been filed in the International Court of Justice. So yes, I think I appreciate the move taken by the government, and one should not be too much worried. China will definitely be opposing that. The nationalistic approach seen coming in amongst the user of the Indian people, that will not import the Chinese good, will not use the Chinese goods. So I think that even the people across the world, the global companies have started thinking of moving out from China, for which the government, the respective governments of those countries are supporting them. So let's see that we may lose little investments, but we may see the good Q to pro Q in the form of the good manufacturing base seen coming back, seen shifting from China to India. It is all depends on us that how much bandwidth we have to absorb those investments in coming in. At least in case of the mobile telephone manufacturing, or in the case of chemical, at least we have been able to surpass, or we have shown a good mighty over China in those. So I think let's wait for this thing, and I don't think that the restriction of the capital free inflow from China should be seen as negative, at least for the near term, because that the prime move is to tackle Chinese might rather than taking worry or getting worried on the capital inflow from China.
Sir, all of us in fact face the biggest challenge of exiting investments, particularly booking profits. Losses, I believe most of us are very keen on cutting, but booking profits in investments is one of the biggest challenges. And a lot of people are asking exactly how one should look at taking on money from the investments that they've made booking profits.
See, Ankit, that is what I've said in my opening opening speech, that you must keep on booking profits. Now, take for instance, if you have bought a stock, forget this extreme situation of pandemic now of COVID-19. Suppose, take for instance, 1 year back you bought a stock A for 100 rupees. You know that what is your expected return. There is no end, there is no limit on the greed which you have. You may expect 100% return maybe in 1 week. But set an expectation that, okay, you have set some, if you are an analyst yourself, or if you are an expert yourself, you must have expected that the stock can move to an X or by 30% in 1 year. Suppose fortunately, if you got a return of 15, 18%, or maybe 10% in 1 month, or maybe 15% in 3 months, or maybe 20% in 6 months, you must have courage, you must control your greed and must book profits. Let's not wait for the 30% return and allow the 12 months to get matured. So profit booking is the success mantra. And even for booking the losses, if you bought some wrong stock, and if you feel that there is no future for that stock, that company, you must have the courage to impute your losses in that particular stock, particular stream. So I think that profit booking is always a success mantra, which at least I have experienced in my 45 years of career.
Sir, how do you see PSU Navratnas, which are available at a very high dividend yields, a lot of them, whether one should look at investing into them with a period of 3 to 5 years?
See, again, I don't think that you can take that call at least for the next 6 months unless until you really see the economy to get stabilized. Because as I said, that the market doesn't move on the historical data. Today, to give an example of PFC, REC, you may say that the share is ruling in 2 digit. They are giving a dividend of 7-8 rupees or 7-8% per 70-80% per share. So you may say that, okay, the dividend yield is 6%, 7%. Whether they will be able to declare that for the next year or not, I have my doubts, number one. Number two, if you see the working, or the company doesn't grow, they show the negative growth, probably you may buy a particular share at, say, 100 rupees. You will get the dividend of 7-8 rupees, but probably because of the degrowth, you may see the share price falling to, say, 80 rupees, 90 rupees also. So there may be a capital value erosion of about 10 rupees, but which will get compensated partly by dividend of maybe 7-8 rupees. So I don't think that that should be the historic data should really be a point. So right now, avoid taking a dividend yield call on any PSU stocks. It is better to focus right now on the quality, which you get like once in a decade opportunity to buy the quality at such a cheap valuation. So I won't advise to look for or chase the dividend yield theme as of now in the PSU number.
Sir, in India, apart from banking, we are also a lot of dependent on the NBFCs. So how do you see NBFC market playing? Particularly, there are good stocks earlier, one would say, like Bajaj Finance or Bajaj Finserv. So whether one should look at investing into them, or how do you see the whole market playing out?
See, again, coming on the NBFC specifically, I agree that since you have quoted the name of Bajaj Finance, that Bajaj Finance was definitely a good investment, but everything has its price. And those who have been hearing me, that I have always said that Bajaj Finance is seen to be very expensive, on the simple premise that maybe 3 months back it was ruling at a price to book of 8x or 9x, whether you take 1 year forward or you take the historic numbers. So I don't think that was crazy reasons. One may blame that, okay, because the COVID has happened, that is why we have seen the destruction of about 57% in the valuation of Bajaj Finance in the last 3 months, but it is not so. The market was wanting a trigger. In fact, today only on CNBC, I've said that about 45 HNIs are holding 240,000 shares, each of them in this share, in this Bajaj Finance. Tomorrow, suppose if they come for selling, maybe at some level, what will be the fate of those? Can those 1 crore share get absorbed by the market? No. So I've been taking an always cautious view on the expensive stocks, maybe like Titan, maybe like PVR, maybe like Bajaj Finance. Let's not get carried away with a P multiple of 60 and maybe price to book of 8, 9. In fact, I don't want to name here few other financials, NBFCs also, which have been ruling at a price to book of maybe 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, which have all got corrected in this last 12 months. Nothing to do with COVID. They all got corrected about 6 to 8 months back only. So yes, allow the things to come to a realistic valuation, then you may look to buy it. But yes, the NBFCs, as I've said, that always seem to be, in fact, microfinance can get added. There are good microfinance companies available because always the business model is seen to be very robust. But yes, you have these kind of hiccups where either sometimes by political move or sometimes by the economic considerations, you see them coming under a deep stress. But I think this time will pass away. And the NBFCs have taken a correction. But for NBFCs, those which have a pedigree, those who have a strong promoters, they should only be looked into. Now stop. The time has gone of buying any NBFCs which have been simply going growth, but are having a leverage of maybe 4x of their net worth or doesn't have the promoter track record.
I'm taking this question particularly from an investor education perspective. There are 2-3 questions of this nature. How much can one depend on recommendations made in print and electronic media or in paid advisory services?
See, again, I won't comment. I don't want to. I want to refrain. But maybe yes, you need to. It is like choosing a family doctor. If you have faith in certain kind of rationals, and if I just if I just go by the trading call being given, I don't think that I rely on them, because they can, today they can be buyer, they can recommend you buying in a particular stock, tomorrow they will be recommending to sell in that stock, because they just go by the hourly pattern or maybe that near term pattern, which is a suicidal for even for a trader. But yes, if you wish to take a confidence and remain confined only to one or two experts, you can't hear all the experts. It is like, choosing a doctor, because you are dealing with your money, which is equally precious. So you need to decide that which are the experts where one should, because on a TV media and print media, that is just a platform where all the experts are called for, or they are all assembled there, and then they give their opinion, maybe because of their expertise, or maybe because of their business commitment. So I won't be giving you a direct comment on that, but yes, you need to confine yourself. If you are not able to take a call of your own, then assign the work to the professionals, those who have a good track record, or then keep your faith, confined to one or two experts.
So there is an interesting question. A lot of times we hear experts mentioning that the key to investment is investing into good and honest management. How do we judge how good a management is?
See, again, in fact, so this is just just a fashionable statement, because if you have met, let me give you my experience. In the last 4 to 5 years, I stopped meeting all the promoters, because whatever, if you go, and I'm not saying that I have not met, in fact, practically I've met all the top houses. I've interviewed Aditya Birla, I've met JRD Tata. So it is not that I have not met, but if you really see the last 4 or 5 years, I don't think that you can, what has been told to me has been delivered by the promoters. Thanks to all the big houses, I may not be that big as those who have that banner and name and tags to them, but still I have seen, I don't want to name, I can name here 8-10 companies, but the moment I name the companies, people will be able to correlate the names with the houses. They have all cheated and deceived. In fact, I've seen them giving, talking very high, these are the investments for next 10 years, and they all got fizzled out in less than 10 weeks or 10 months or 10 quarters. So my point is that yes, if you can take extract the best out of the promoters, then that is possible. Take the case of Z Group, since I cannot refrain myself from taking some name. What was the situation? Every mutual fund has lent, like a PSU bank having lent to the private people. People are having so much confidence, they are owning the channel, this, that, what has happened, what is the fate? So there are umpteen number of houses, and this one where the people have interacted. I'm referring the broking houses, I'm referring the experts, I'm referring the mutual fund managers, I'm referring the PMS investment managers, I'm referring the alternate investment fund managers. But what has been the fate? So yes, that's a job. But you have to be very transparent and honest, and you must be able to extract the best out of the true facts out of them, and we must be able to screen them out with their intention and with their performance. Yeah.
In today's times, so there's a lot of expectations from government to come up with a relief package or announce some measures where they can boost the economy. How much the cushion actually does the government have, and whether one should look at those, and what are those measures probably which we can see in the coming days?
See, again, whatever measures government has announced, I must praise and appreciate that they have gone very well in a calibrated manner, well ahead of the time required by the industry or maybe by the people. You are right that yes, we have the resource constraint, but let's not, if you've seen the statement of Finance Minister, Reserve Bank of India Governor, Economic Advisor, they've always said that we don't want to come the entire relief package in one go. And they are right. They say that we are prepared to give everything at the required time in a calibrated manner. In fact, just to give an example, in the US, they've announced a 2.3 trillion package. What has happened? In 2 weeks, the 2.3 trillion got evaporated, or they got used in the some of the junky bonds purchase also. And now the US is thinking of giving another 2 trillion package. So India is not that rich. We have our own resource constraint. And now here the more focus is given on the migrant laborers and on the people below poverty line, which unfortunately was never the focus and theme of the earlier governments. So I must praise and appreciate that we all rich class can sustain and can bear that losses. We may not be very happy with the allocations having given to the industry or to the banks or to the NBFCs, but I think the government is doing a right job. First package of 1,72,000 crore by the government, then second 2 packages by the Reserve Bank of India in the form of the forbearances, moratorium on the payments, and all sort of things are seen to be this one. And this is not an end in my view. They will keep coming as and when the things are required.
So the recent moves by the Reserve Bank in terms of lowering the interest rates and pushing the banks to lend more, how much impact that will have looking at the background of the NPAs that one is facing currently? and whether it should be a prudent move to do so?
See, definitely, Reserve Bank is doing their best. They cannot put a gun to the head on the head of the reserve on the head of the bankers to lend. They've reduced the reverse repo rate by 25 basis point to 3.75%. I would have been happy if they would have reduced it by 50 basis point. But yes, the banks are little averse in lending, and they are seen to be little worried on the fear of the NPFs. But difficult to say because there is no problem of liquidity. There are ample liquidity. Banks were seen happy in parking with the Reserve Bank of India and earning the reverse repo rate of 4%. But now I hope that they will be fourthly, they will go ahead, whether they may not directly lend, but at least that will be given to the quality NBFCs, which in turn will go to the industry, to the MSME, or to maybe to the small borrower. Yeah.
There's an interesting question from a chartist. He's saying, with the unexpected situations right now, whether the charts will actually be useful in predicting or try to analyze those charts at this situation.
See, I've never, as a fundamental analyst, some people may not like my this submission, but as a fundamental analyst, I've never relied on the charts and all that, because I have been hardcore financial analyst and I rely on the balance sheets, financial data, industry reports, and the industry prospects.
So, how do you perceive the airline sector? This airline stocks?
There is no question of taking a call on hospitality, airlines, maybe multiplexes, because if the things are seen to be groping in the dark, how can you take a call that when they will start, how much occupancy will be there, plant the PLF of the aircraft, whether they will make sit one person in one row, or maybe they'll make two people to sit on the row. I don't think that what's the compulsion. If you are already invested in the aviation stocks, I would advise that get out. But if you are not invested, then pray God that you are not invested in the multiplexes or the airlines or maybe in the hospitality industry.
So there are a lot of questions asked for Suzlon Energy. What is your call on that?
No, just exit, because there is no point. We have all been hearing that this Dilip Sanghvi is coming, then this debt restructuring happening. Please exit from the stock. Now we can go in the rapid fire round with the stocks and all that. I can quickly now. Yeah.
Yes, sir. I believe we have taken a lot of calls on stocks. One last call I would like to take is on the FMCG sector, particularly ITC.
See, again, ITC, I've always, as a matter of principle, I've never invested in the sin stocks, whether it is pan masala or cigarette or maybe breweries. In my whole life, I've never invested. And I always say that if you are not happy, why should you promote that tobacco culture should grow and that should in turn give you profits? That may be my philosophy, that may be my principles. But yes, if you go purely on fundamentals, you say, I don't care for all this thing, my only care is about earning the profits. Then yes, ITC at the current level is ruling at a P multiple of 15. Because one can expect an EPS of about 12 from ITC for the FY21, because people will keep smoking. So maybe if you wish to go for the sector, because FMCG sector per se has a P multiple of anywhere between 25 to 35, and ITC is available at a P multiple of 15. But as a matter of principle, I won't advise investment, but as a fundamental analyst, you can go and invest into the ITC.
Should one look at investing into life insurance companies?
No, not now, because the way the plans have been made by these companies, because they've always taken the yield on their investment at 9%, 8% if you go by their long term, because whatever interactions I had. Now with the falling interest regime, I don't know whether they'll be able to stand with that kind of returns or not, and that will be giving them a good problem, maybe 3 years down the line, 2 years down the line, or 5 years down the line.
Ankit, 1 second. 1 second. Sir, there is one question on mutual fund on daily SIP in large cap and consumer sector. How would you advise that?
See, Mehul bhai, I never advise any investors to go for the dedicated fund, whether it is consumer sector, pharma sector, or maybe banking financials. So if he has gone for the SIP in any dedicated sector fund, then I will be little uncomfortable. But coming on your consumption theme, I always, as I've always said, because in a consumption, again, in consumption basket, you may have HUL with a P multiple of 55, while you may have ITC with a P multiple of 15. So it all depends at what kind of product, what kind of stock selection they have in that particular field. But generally, I refrain from advising the dedicated fund. And for mutual fund, the gentleman has to consult a mutual fund expert.
Do we see ourselves or the entire world moving from globalization to again restricting ourselves towards your own country?
See, if you have the patriotism, if you have the nationalism, and if you doesn't have your commercial considerations, dominate, then definitely that will be seen happening. And I think that should start with our youngsters, those who just go for study for a couple of years to US but doesn't come back to India.
Right, sir. Sir, Mehul bhai, I believe most of the questions are there.
Yeah. So just one thing. Would you recommend any good books to read on financial markets in this downtime?
Sorry, Mehul bhai?
Would you recommend any good books on financial markets to read in this time?
See, Mehul bhai, I just say that go and improve your core. There is no point in reading any. I will only advise. Again, people may say that, you may read this book, that book. I agree of investment gurus and all that. But I always say that if you really wish to have an expertise into the stock market, just keep reading the industry reports. And then go for the company selection. I won't advise reading any books. Those principles. Yeah. If you are a chartered accountant, then you already have gathered those. Or if you are having a finance background, that you have already gathered those experiences. Yeah.
Right. I think Ankit, you can now close the session.